Today on Locked On Rockies, we answer your questions from Twitter.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 11th day of October in the year 2022. I am your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, your Rockies fan extraordinaire, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team each and every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, guess what? You are in the right spot because that's what we do around here. We talk about the Rockies each and every day. And if you're wondering who the heck is this guy, well, I'm Paul Holden, your Rockies fan extraordinaire, and I've been following this team my entire life and bringing you your daily Rockies talk here for over 2 seasons. Now we are streaming live on YouTube. You can join the live chat just like Joel DeGrace did. Joel, hello to you as well in the live chat. We stream all of our episodes live on YouTube, so you can join the live chat and ask your questions live. And today's all about fan questions. Apologies for the audio quality yesterday. I did a little, my roommate helped boost my PC a little bit, and I forgot to change my settings. So that's why the YouTube audio quality was a little wonky yesterday. So we'll bounce back here, and hopefully things should sound better today. But of course, thank you for making us your first listen of the day. And like I said, today, all about fan questions. Nicholas is here in the chat as well. Hello to you. And I want to start with the question here from @GirlDad88. Biggest needs and potential targets. The Rockies' two biggest needs this offseason are bullpen assistance and power hitting. The Rockies certainly can look at what should be a pretty darn deep outfield class and make an adjustment for there. As we read, and I'm sure I don't know how many of you guys actually read Dick Monford's letter, there is some language that might lead you to believe that the Rockies could be active again this winter. But unfortunately, with the inaction at the trade deadline that we've seen 2 years, kind of mixed with really interesting off seasons where they have spent money in the offseason. We can't sit there and say that the Rockies have not done anything in the offseason. They might have missed out on someone like, say, John Gray, but the team has gone out and spent more money in free agency than usual, especially this last offseason, and when they've committed to some of the contracts there. Because when we have another question here asking about the open contracts or who are Rockies free agents, and we'll talk about that here in the second segment. But realistically, the Rockies should be targeting one of these outfielders. I mean, there are just far too many good outfielders out there for the Rockies not to be interested in, even when you have Chris Bryant and an impressive Jonathan Daza, as we talked about yesterday. Let's be real here. If the Rockies really want to get the most out of Charlie Blackmon and have Charlie Blackmon be the most effective player he can be for the Rockies next year, as he's not expected to opt out and take his player option and play for the Rockies next year, potentially it could be his last year. I mean, I don't know. I don't think he's really hinted enough of that, but to see that with the end of the contract looming, that's a different story. The Rockies are going to be a better team and put themselves in a better chance when they can keep Blackmon's bat in the lineup but not have to rely on him for defense. You have interesting options, sure, but you're already not playing Randal Grichuk every day, and you'd rather probably go with some of these other options, especially if you're looking to really make a splash and have someone play alongside Chris Bryant. Because when you're looking for free agents for the Rockies, this is where they have to be good in terms of bringing players in. The Rockies need to be really good at bringing in position players because it's going to always be hard to bring in pitchers that want to pitch at Coors Field, especially, ones that they don't develop and sign on. There's a lot of pitchers that might want the challenge. Sure, there's many pitchers that might have grown up in Colorado, as we're seeing more and more Colorado pitchers in the league that might be interested in coming back if the Rockies were in a different situation. But this is where the Rockies need to be successful as a front office and as an organization when it comes to free agent acquisitions. To be totally honest, even with, I know the money and the commitment in years was too much for Chris Bryant, but the Rockies landing Chris Bryant is a good sign for their ability to bring in a big name talent and a big potential free agent and convince them to play. They convinced Chris Bryant, one of the most enticing free agents last year, to come and sign a long-term deal in Colorado. Obviously, there is some sprinklings of Chris Bryant maybe being on the downside, and that's a nice, really good pad for him as he was heading into retirement. It might have been the best, thing, but 7 years is still a long time. And Chris Bryant played productive baseball in the limited time that we did see him. If the Rockies want to go out and make an interesting splash and really change the narrative of their team like Dick Monfort wants to, as he kind of scathed some of the things like the Rockies, calling the road Rockies a performance abysmal. Their clutch situational hitting. The defense is another thing. I mean, he rightly points out the issues with the Rockies, which is a good sign from Dick, but the rest of it did still feel like it was a template that he just kind of has two things removed, that he put things in there, and a lot of promotion about how great Coors Field is. But some names NBC Sports is listed here. That's where I'm pulling this list from, but it's a good list. And I think these are honestly, when you're saying who should the Rockies target, the Rockies should be going out and targeting one of these big name outfielders to go alongside Chris Bryant and a slew of exciting prospects. But the issue is some of your most exciting prospects are also outfielders, and you're not going to be able to get time for all of those players. The Rockies are going to have to make a commitment here, but if they really wanted to spice things up, if they really wanted to enhance this lineup, they could take some of the players that they gave an extended time or look at and move them for some bullpen help. It's going to be more likely you can get good bullpen relief and help through trade than probably signing pitchers, like we've said, with the struggles of the Rockies trying to bring pitchers into Colorado. So you can use some of those players that have made an impact. Is Sean Bouchard really a big part of it? I mean, we didn't talk a lot about Sean Bouchard this year, but he came up and he was a pretty solid prospect, at least in that in the time that we saw. Could you use that to help your bullpen while you go out and try to go after? Of course, I've already talked about this on the show. Pipe dream, if this is just the Rockies had a blank check and they could go, I think signing Aaron Judge would be a great deal, because you could just have him DH, or you just stick him in right field where he'll just do exactly what he does in Yankee Stadium already, and he would hit more home runs and be exactly what you need, a power bat. And the best thing about Judge was he was hitting better. And are the Rockies going to play what is going to shape up to be probably a $300 million contract? No, but the question was, who should the Rockies go after? You at least call the agent, you at least entertain it, you at least try to tell him, I mean, hey, you could be the next big thing here. I mean, just think about 62 home runs and he plays in New York, 82 games in Colorado. I mean, that's or 81 games in Colorado. I just think it's not going to happen, but pipe dream, exciting thing. I think it would be great. Another name, Brandon Nimo. And this is the description of Nimo is exactly what you're looking for in a Rocky center fielder. Exactly the type of player that you would want to be the anchor of your outfield, and the center fielder that you would want is above average glove and ability to get on base consistently. Center field is a position at Coors that needs to be played by good defense, if not elite defense, and an ability and a threat at the plate. Mookie Betts would be perfect at Coors Field. He would be exactly what the Rockies need. I know Mookie doesn't play center field as much anymore and kind of moves around. He still does and could play center field, but that's exactly the type of player you're looking for. Andrew Benintendi would be an interesting one, someone that would be looking to rebound. Jock Peterson as well. He's been around and played at Coors Field many times. Mitch Haniger could be, the two that might be like risks, but might look to Colorado for rebound. And again, the Rockies would hope for rebound, and I don't necessarily know what that risk might be. Would be Mitch Haniger and Joey Gallo. Those two players could be really interesting. Michael Conforto is, a power bat. the Rockies need to add power, and they really, really need to make the outfield a little bit better. They don't, the depth they have in outfield isn't convincing enough for me, for them to avoid the outfield. I mean, it should just be those names are all great additions, and I think are going to be the thing, because you have the infield kind of set up, and are mostly your top prospects. Most of your most exciting prospects that are MLB ready, that are up right now, are infielders. Your Tolia, your Montero, Tovar, the only one, the outlier being how well Sean Bouchard, kind of played it there. But those three names are the ones that Rockies fans are getting accustomed to. And those three are the ones you're going to want to see more of. So your outfield, Jonathan Daza can play right field. Randall Grichuk can play right field. There's plenty of people that can fill the right field spot if the Rockies go out and add in free agency an outfielder, especially one that can play center field, or vice versa. Have them play right field. Jonathan Daza can be there. Good point though, Joel. Veen looks really good, and Zach Veen could be the legitness that if he comes up and mixes with if the prospects the Rockies have pan out, going to be an interesting thing when he comes up. So those outfield contracts are going to be interesting, especially with Veen, because he needs to get. I mean, with how much he's tearing it up, Veen should be getting MLB hacks here. I'm going to dive back into the live chat, miss some stuff, and going to answer a little bit more of the Twitter fan questions. But before we do that, I got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes BetOnline. BetOnline.net. That's BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your football betting information this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sport wagering information, with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events is at betonline.net, and that includes the Major League Baseball playoffs and MMA, boxing, golf, football, anything you want. You can check it out. Even esports betting is there at betonline.net. Head to betonline.net on your mobile device, or you can use the PC, of course, to learn more. That's betonline.net. BetOnline, where the game starts. Joel DeGrace, when I was saying the Rockies doing some spending in the off season, says, I'll believe it when I see it. I think Monfort will just try to put a Band-Aid on it to try to get the attendance back to the top 10. Interesting. I actually have to do a little correcting, because late numbers came out and the Rockies did end up and cracking the top 10 again. So the numbers that I read in that whole episode, in that pod I did, was I guess I jumped the gun. But so the Rockies are in the top 10, but still though, I wonder. I think you're still on the right track, and Joel follows that up with random thought. But I think the Rocks developmental would really benefit from bringing the Sky Sox back. Made a lot of sense having the AAA in the Springs, where players got used to the altitude. That's an interesting point. It is an interesting point, but I wonder if it's more beneficial to also keep to make. It's tough. There's not enough, but Albuquerque's a little higher up, isn't it? Albuquerque isn't like sea level. Let's see. Albuquerque is 5,300. I mean, they're still well above of sea level down there in Albuquerque at 5,300. I mean, that's higher than Denver when away from it, because that's 5,280 is where what Denver's at. So they're at 5,312 when it comes to elevation. So they're down there in Albuquerque at playing Coors Field style ball. But it might be interesting too if Colorado's an extra factor. But the Rockies just don't know enough about the ballparks, and I just feel like that's where the Rockies need to get creative with the science. The analytics is one thing, but I really do think it would be interesting if the Rockies just got like a meteorologist or someone, like someone that knew how the ball. If the Rockies could know how air pressure and all and the summer conditions and a late storm cell And I know that they do. I know they already talk about that on broadcasts where storms knock the ball down or the wind's knocking the ball down. And they already have information, but it would be really interesting to see if the Rockies could dominate that side of the game and really, who knows, in the futuristic Rockies baseball, maybe they build their lineups around the weather, which could be interesting. Trevor Salzman asked who I'd like the Rockies to target in free agency, and there's that. We'll talk maybe some more about some pitchers, but I think it would be better for me to try to in crossover see if we can come up with some trades with people, because I really think that's the way the Rockies is. That's how I think the Rockies are going to make their bullpen better. You have players that you don't know what you're going to do with, that you can trade away and players might be interested in. There's just some stuff that I think you can build your depth when the areas when you need by thinning out. Again, if the Rockies go out and sign outfielders in free agency, you can trade away some of that depth. And even if it is taking a risk, just see what you can try and get for some bullpen arms. It just get some lefties in the lineup just to see just some players that maybe, that weren't awesome, but were consistent, that fill you, that follow your pitching philosophy. But maybe we'll talk more about relief pitching here. Another thing, because that, again, one of the big things, but I really, truly think the Rockies big target should be a great outfielder to partner with Chris Bryant, that they don't have to go buco crazy long or go make a splash and get to that spot. But here we go. At Free Durango on Twitter says, what open contracts are there right now? And when you look at the contracts, there's not a lot that entices the Rockies to bring some of these players back. It just doesn't necessarily make sense. Jose Iglesias was great, but in reality, are you going to bring Jose Iglesias back? I don't think so. Does Jose Iglesias want to come back? He might. He might have really go after come back, but that doesn't really fit in with your plan, especially when now with this and as much as I was against it, if McMahon is the team shortstop and that means Montero's playing third base and Tolia and Rhone are going at first, I'm going to be fine with that, because I still think that's the best way for the Rockies to move forward. I think Montero needs to be in the lineup every day. He might not have, he wants it. You can tell in his interviews, he knows that there's more out of him, and the Rockies need to continue to give that opportunity. So when you're looking at evaluating the contract of probably the most interesting free agent the Rockies have in Jose Iglesias outside of Carlos Estevez, it just doesn't necessarily make sense for the Rockies to bring Iglesias back. He, as Joel, you mentioned it, he was a filler, great journeyman, not the future of our shortstop position, and he still contributes plenty good enough that there's a team out there that's looking for, hey, we're a contender, let's get Jose Iglesias. Look what he just did, and look what he's still able to do. Because the most enticing thing about Jose Iglesias for other teams this offseason was he was a better hitter on the road than he was at Coors Field. One of the rare anomalies there. So you have that. Nicholas, your question. It's always a good idea to look overseas for players. I think the Rockies should be way more involved, and it sounds like they are in the Latin countries, as we've seen, especially with some of the Rockies players and who they've gotten. But I think international scouting is always a good idea, and it helps grow the game too. The Rockies are really good, are a good team to they're kind of an easy team to root for too. There are stuff that's enjoyable about it as well. I think the Rockies are kind of like a good baseball team that can help some teams and help introduce player or fans and stuff into the game of baseball. So I'm always for looking at the international game. I'm very excited for the World Baseball Classic. The other free agents for the Rockies, Scott Oberg, I don't necessarily, that one's a tricky situation there, especially because I don't think he's going to be able to continue pitching. Alex Colome, Carlos Estevez, Chad Kuhl, Jose Urena, and Steven Cardulo. I don't even remember how much Steven Cardulo even played for the Rockies, if he played for them at all. I could see the Rockies bringing back Kuhl or Urena, especially with the way Urena pitched at the end of the year, but there's nothing exciting there. But that's another issue with the Rockies. There's no one in the farm system. Monfort mentions a couple of arms, but there's nothing really super enticing and exciting that's currently within the Rockies organization in terms of pitching. So that is something that I think the Rockies also need to look at in free agency. We didn't talk much about that. Pitching all together. There's holes all over the place, but I think you can go out and see at least there's a lot of free agent pitchers hitting the market, and I think we'll do more deep dives into specific pitchers. I think we need to do a whole pitching episode. I think with this first kind of fan, we're going to talk a lot about free agency. I think that's a really big topic for the Rockies this offseason. So I know I didn't dive too much. I kind of want to talk more about the position players today. Let's see here. Let's get ready to answer more questions. But first, let's check this out. Joel DeGray says, hell, let's just get Ohtani after next year. Would be awesome. I mean, it's not going to happen, but the Rockies are in a division in which they have two owners that are willing to spend it all. And I just, as we've talked about before, it is not LA. It's not the California market, sure. But the Colorado market is huge. And not only do you have Colorado, but if you make the Rockies a dominant baseball force, if you make the Rockies an all-star stuttered team like they were for a little bit, when the Rockies had a lot, when they were making the playoffs and stuff, you could tell you have an entire region that you can dominate. They've tried to, that there's like, we're talking Albuquerque, we're talking Nebraska, we're talking Oklahoma, we're talking all of these places that are close. And Oklahoma's deep in college baseball lore and stuff. I mean, I know there's a lot of teams that you can still root for, but all of the area that is close to Denver. I mean, I'm not even mentioning Wyoming and further north as well. All of the area that is close to or attached or in the same region as Colorado would latch on to the Rockies. They just would, because it's closer to them, and they would want, and fans like to root for. I know it's easier for people to latch on to the Yankees and stuff, but there's a lot of usual family connections that are to those major cities and big places, especially when people spread out. But you can spread the Rocky fandom by being an exciting team. You want to know why the Padres continue to be in a national conversation, and when they get excitement, obviously they're in the division series this year. They've been playing good baseball, but they're also out there spending money, bringing in big names, and saying San Diego is no longer a place where it's just, there was a great reliever and some great stretches there. They're a place that's willing to spend money, and that's the San Diego market. The San Diego market that has to compete with everything else in California, just in their state alone. The Rockies have such a prime chunk of real estate that they could dominate, and then special cable packages, radio deals that you already have get more valuable when the team is better. The Rockies could be an entire region. They wouldn't just be confined to one thing. And yes, the national stuff and all the national perspective of the Rockies might still suffer, but they could capture an entire chunk of the country and make a huge, passionate wave of Rockies fans and fill up the stands with actual Rockies fans. I mean, I know that it's not any different to Montfort who's buying the tickets, because the dollar is the same, roots for the same team. But it's going to be nice to see Coors Field one day full of Rockies fans, and a lot more Rockies fans than opposing fans like it used to. It's going to be a long way to get there, but just by that, it's interesting. And Joel, it's a good point. I wonder how much it costs to get Chris Sale interested in coming to Colorado. Everyone's got a price. I just don't think the Rockies can also, instill enough confidence in these guys who want to come there. The Rockies can entice pitchers that want to kind of make an impression, or are looking to rebound, or are just kind of looking for something a little safer, because they get the ultimate excuse of, well, I'm pitching at altitude for the first time. We'll talk more pitchers. We'll talk more fan questions. We'll talk more Rockies baseball all off-season long. So follow along with us on Twitter at LO Rockies, and right here on Locked On Rockies on YouTube. And I see Mario Superstar Baseball legend there, Toasty OG there in the chat. Thank you for popping in as well. Yeah, folks, if you're ever curious in the off season, if you're looking for something kind of fun, it is Tuesday. I'm a big part of the Mario Superstar Baseball community. We do a whole bunch of stuff. I stream on Tuesdays at twitch.tv/chat_pack. If you want to come hang out and see what online Mario baseball is all about during this off season. I know there's a lot of great playoff baseball too. So, but folks, thanks so much for making this your first listen of the day. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks, Joel. Thanks, Nicholas, for being such awesome chatters and always great with the questions there as well. And the same with you folks on Twitter. Follow along on Twitter. Subscribe to Locked On Rockies on YouTube so you can be part of the show just like Nicholas, Toasty, and Joel were today. And you can also follow me at Paul Holden 33 if you want more of this guy. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Now go make Locked On MLB your second listen of the day. No one better to talk baseball with than Sully. He's got all sorts of great playoff action covered for you there. And, of course, you can stay up to date with all things Colorado sports with the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, and Locked On Nuggets podcast. Folks, until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies.